Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Councillor Lynn Stagg, Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation. Some simple housekeeping information. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. I think there's nobody else apart from PCC staff here, are there? Do not attempt to use the lifts. We will assemble at Queen Victoria statue in front of the civic offices. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished, otherwise the camera will remain on you. Right, thank you. Introductions. Councillor Heaney.
Well, that wasn't me, that was the microphone.
You sure?
No, it wasn't my bag or anything. No, I'm Councillor Graham Heaney and I'm the Labour Group spokesperson on traffic and transportation.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Harris.
Councillor Scott Peter Harris, I am the Conservative spokesperson for traffic and transportation.
Thank you. Michelle.
Good afternoon, Michelle Love, Safer Travel Manager at Portsmouth City Council.
Thank you. Andy.
Andrew DeMarco, Active Travel Manager at Portsmouth City Council.
Good afternoon, Kevin McKee, Parking Manager at Portsmouth City Council.
Thank you.
Denise Bastow, Parking Office Manager at Portsmouth City Council.
Thank you.
Abby Kentley, Senior Project Manager at Portsmouth City Council, working in the infrastructure team.
Thank you.
Hayley Chivers, Transport Planning Manager.
Felicity Tibbury, Assistant Director for Transport.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Councillors Peter Harris and Heaney? No? No apologies required, are there? Right. So, item number 3, Apsley Road Disabled Persons Parking Places. Who's going to present that? Is that you, Kevin, or Denise?
I'll present the report, but there was a email from one of the objectors. Do we read that out beforehand, or do the report and then? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, item 3 is a report on a proposed disabled bay in Apsley Road. When we advertised it, it received one objection from a resident of Apsley Road who is making the point that parking in Apsley Road is particularly difficult on match days and that there are a number of disabled bays already in Apsley Road. Nonetheless, we believe we should put in the disabled bay to help the blue badge holder who needs access to their vehicle. So the recommendation is to implement the bay. Thank you.
So I'll read out the additional information that's coming from the person objecting. I have received notice that a decision relating to the creation of a new disabled bay on the eastern side of Apsley Road outside Charles Clark House will be taken on 19th of January. I've been in contact with Amanda Clayton, who is in the disabled bay team, who raised several points in defence of the proposal to create a further disabled bay in this small area. As you know, Apsley Road has parking restrictions on match days, rendering the western side of the road unusable. There are at present 4 disabled parking bays on the eastern side of the road, and your proposal would increase this number to 5. This would make parking in even our licensed areas more problematic on these days than is already the case. I have no expectation of being able to park in front of my property, often walking a fairly long way with heavy shopping, etc., to get from my car to my house. But as I say, being able to park at all within the parking zone on match days remains an issue. While I have the utmost sympathy for those with mobility problems, it is apparent that this restriction is now even more limiting for other residents of this road. Even if my objection has no effect, I would like the Council to consider that there is still a special problem on these roads, Apsley, Carisbrooke and Frogmore. Therefore, if I am entitled to do so, I maintain my objection to this proposal.
Thank you, Denise and Kevin. Can I ask a few questions, clarification first of all? Is anybody who is disabled or has a disability and they fit the criteria, are they all entitled to have a disabled bay?
They have to have a residence in Portsmouth and no access to off-street parking, and there needs to be a car registered to their household. So if you've got a car, it doesn't necessarily have to be the disabled person themselves, but if a member of their household has a car, that's correct, isn't it? But we also assess whether they've got usable off-street parking, and if they have, then we don't give them a bay.
Thank you. And is there any off-street parking for this particular block of flats to accommodate all the households within it?
Not that I'm aware of, no. That would have been part of the assessment.
Right, thank you. And the other thing is this a new resident of the area, or is it somebody who's been living in the area? What I'm trying to ascertain is it adding another car to the area or not?
I don't think it's adding another car to the area. I think they were already parking in Apsley Road anyway with their blue badge. They're just asking for the disabled bay, so I think it's not actually introducing another vehicle into the area.
Lovely, thank you. Just wanted that for clarification. Councillor Heaney, have you got any questions? Or
Not particularly in detail. I mean, these are obviously very much ward-specific issues and local. I don't know if the local ward councils have made any comments either for and against. There's nothing in the report, so I'm assuming they're either that, silence is assent in that respect. I mean, I'm reasonably happy with what I've heard, so I don't have a problem with it.
thank you. Councillor Peter Harris.
Yeah, to be fair, likewise to Councillor Heaney, there's been no ward councillor representation, so I assume that they are happy. Obviously, these are quite important for residents to be able to park outside their homes, especially when they have trouble getting in and out of the city. So, yeah, no, I'm fully support the decision you're going to make.
I appreciate that there's parking problems, but there are parking problems right across the city. Doesn't matter where you go. I mean, I used to live round the corner from Apsley Road, and on match days, I used to either arrange to be in all day, or if I was going out, that I wouldn't come back until after the football crowds had gone home. So, it's one of those things you have to learn to live with, I think, if you choose to live in a place like that. Sorry, did you say something?
Just remarking the fact that after the announcement of the new Portsmouth manager today, they'll probably get a lot smaller crowd, so people will be able to get in and out quicker. Bit of a shocking appointment.
Lovely. Well, I'm happy to go with the recommendations and say go ahead. Thank you. Right. Next item, I think, is PCC Right-of-Way Improvement Plan. Is that you, Michelle?
Andy's going to present, and I am here
I apologise, Andy. I
support
just assumed.
if necessary.
I wasn't being sexist. All right.
Oh, it's no problem, don't worry.
Chair, item 4 is actually the Southsea Transport Hub. Item 4 is the Southsea Transport Hub according to my agenda. Yes. Yes.
I've got an older one. I think I've got the original draft one, and
It is in the chair's gift, though, to vary the order
yeah,
if you
absolutely.
please.
no, I'm not varying it. It's just done on my paper. I haven't got a later version.
We were expecting.
Have you any objections to it
We
going
were
ahead now?
expecting to be the last item, so we're happy to go in whatever order you would like us
Well,
to go
as
in.
it's on the papers that I've got, okay, because I didn't pick up. I just assumed they were the. We'll go ahead with that. So, Andy, I'm sorry.
Don't apologise, thank you. So I've brought to committee today report regarding the Right-of-Way Improvement Plan. We're seeking approval for adoption of this improvement plan, which spans the year 2023 to 2033. There was a consultation held between November 21 and February 22, which is part of a statutory consultation on rights-of-way improvement plans, and the recommendation is that the Cabinet Member for TNT notes the results of the consultation, which is Appendix A in the report, adopts the Portsmouth Right-of-Way, which is Appendix B in the report, which has been developed following the responses to this consultation, and recognises that this document will form the basis for the rights-of-way improvement for the period 2023 to 2033.
Have you finished?
Would you like me to carry on in terms of providing a
no,
background? So this builds on and this is the second iteration of the rights-of-way improvement plan within the city. We have a statutory duty to produce a 10-year rights-of-way improvement plan, and the reason we're recommending this is we carried out a consultation which received a total of 1,053 responses. It gave a confidence of 95% in the responses that we received and the views And we reviewed the rights of way improvement plan and considered the results of the consultation and made a number of amendments which are recommended, which are noted within the report. The document itself will provide a explanation of how we're going to improve our rights of way and provide a better user experience for residents and visitors within the city. And it ensures that rights of way are further considered in terms of things such as local planning policy, transport policy and strategy documents. Thank you.
You finished, yeah? Okay. Can I say what a thorough report, and what a heck of a lot of work has gone into it. I know from when, I can't remember who it was, Jane Rogers did it many years ago. It was months and months of work, so thank you all very much. Was it mainly you doing this, Andy?
It was started with some predecessors and involved several members of BCC officers, but I ultimately ended with the document, yes.
Well, thank you, it's very thorough. Councillor Peter Harris, any questions?
It's not so much a question, it's more about comments, because I've had lots of questions on rights of way already, probably about Compton Road more than anything. Andrew's nodding his head, it's a bit of a local ward issue, but it's fine. I mean, this plan builds on the previous one considerably. I think it understands what we can and can't do. So, I think it's a very thorough report, and I actually enjoyed reading it for once, So it was very simple for someone, what I'd call a lay person like me. I'm fully supportive. What I do like about this is the how it influences other policies and other plans. So it's a really interlinking document. So, for example, the LTP4, the air quality strategy, the LC WIP. I think it's very sensible that we've obviously integrated this policy with those. So we're seeing a real joined up approach regards to rights of way, and that will influence decision making going down the line for whoever's in charge of the council and the transport portfolio. So I think it's a really sensible document, and I really support the recommendations today.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Yes, thank you. I do have a few questions. The report, obviously, this has been quite an ongoing issue. I'm aware of it's taken time to get this right, but just in terms of the report that we've got in front of us, I was interested in some of the information which didn't quite sort of cover what I thought we might do. For example, in page 14, where we do the survey, which had people have respondents, it talks about respondents using a number of Portsmouth rights of way, and they actually say it's number 2, 3, 4, 5, 42, but I had no idea what those are. I'd be quite interested to know which of those rights of way, which seem to be used by quite a lot of the respondents, as to which ones they are, because it's quite interesting to know which ones are used. It's on page 14, page 15. It's respondents by number of PROI they use in Portsmouth, and it says number of PROW, which is fine, but I have no idea what number 2, number 3, number 5, number 42, or whatever it is. So it'd be helpful to know. I mean, you can provide me the information later if you like, but I would just be interested to know what those ones are. Can you provide that?
That's fine.
Andy,
So in terms of the numbers, there are 103 rights of way numbered through 1 through to 103. They're listed on our definitive map and statement, which you can find on the Portsmouth City Council website. I'll share it with you afterwards. Apologies, it wasn't made explicitly clear before.
Okay, that was fine. I also had a question about the difference between rights of way and, I'll find it in a minute when I find the relevant page. Yeah, rights of way and promoted routes, because the Solent Way, which obviously goes up around Portsmouth and up the east side of the harbour, which I obviously use quite regularly, I was a little surprised to realise that wasn't a right of way. It's what we call a promoted route, which is no registered public right of way. What's the difference between a promoted route and a right of way?
So a right of way has a legal status, and a promoted route is one which is recognised as a route that gets used, but there's been no legal standing for that to be maintained as a route. So when a right of way comes into effect, it's maintainable by the public purse, and with promoted routes, sometimes they can come into disrepair, etc., and there's no legal obligation to maintain those routes, but they're often within authorities. So, for example, say the Eastern Road, for example, that they maintain the footpath as part of the maintenance schedule. It's just, but it doesn't have any legal standing, as it were.
Because I noticed when they were doing the Harbour Works, they actually put a notice up about a diversion of the path. So that was like, you know, to divert it. They went up quite late, but, you know, they were there. And I thought, well, is it a registered right-of-way or is it not? So that explains it. So thank you for that. The other question I wanted to ask related to the latter part of the report, where it talks about the improvement plan. And I notice we get up, the page numbers on the improvement plan are from 31 onwards. We have a number of items on sort of maintenance, project reporting, etc. And it talks about time scale, and then it talks about ongoing for most of them. It talks about extra staff requirements on number 1, in addition to the costs below, and it says 5 to 50,000. And then on the item 3, the derivative map statement, it says ongoing use of existing staff, and then 5 to 50,000. And you carry on over the page, the figures that are used to indicate potential extra cost, which is presumably either including or not including staff, always seems to be the same. So I was trying to work out what the potential cost of doing this is, and I wasn't sure whether this is a cumulative cost, i.e. each of those is going to cost between 5 and 50,000, or whether it's a total cost, i.e. the whole lot will cost between 5 and 50,000. Because it wasn't really clear, but the same figures keep appearing in box after box after box, so it was a little bit confusing about whether it was individual cost or total
Andy,
cost.
do you have an answer to that?
So yeah, the costs were deduced in kind of a bracketed format, that it would be an approximate between, it would cost, for example, say 0.7A, providing a high quality map, the rough cost estimate for that would be less than £5,000. The rough cost estimate for future maintenance on number 5A for the England Coast Path is between £5,000 and £50,000, because it varies depending on what type of infrastructure we're implementing. So it was tried to be provided as a broad enough bracket, so there was an understanding in general terms as to what sort of cost implications this may have on the authority.
Right, so that means that each individual item could cost between either 5,000 or
Yeah.
50,000. You'd have to add up all of those boxes to find out what the total cost would
That's
be.
correct. Yeah.
Right, that's okay. And you say extra staff requirements for each of these, but I notice that often the partners are within the local authority. Occasionally, of course, it's outside bodies. Is this because it's not absorbable within the work of the various departments, or we need a dedicated member of staff for all of these things, or?
So to give an example, number 6 is partnership and stakeholder engagement. So point B is to continue to work with stakeholders. Obviously, that's an extra staff requirement externally, because they would be required to help assist with our improvements. And the view of extra staff requirements is outside of what the rights of way team are responsible for. So calling on PCC planning, for example, would be external to the Portsmouth rights of way team.
Right.
So that would be the extra staff requirement, and that would have an additional charge on the LTP budget for rights of way each year.
So it's the recharging system that we use, which is because they do something for us, we have to pay them. Yeah, okay. Right. I think broadly that was it. I mean, I obviously, welcome the document. It seems fine. I was just commenting that it's a bit handy to have colour maps, because you can actually work out what things are the colour. But I'm going to get copies of those later. So yeah, generally I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing that didn't concern me, I've raised an eyebrow about, and that is the number of people who had no idea about what rights of way were and where they were. And I can't remember looking at I can't say that I've looked in great detail to the transport sort of flagship type thing we're putting out. I can't remember if it's that explained in there, is it?
If rights of way are explained within flagship.
Yeah, so because that document is going to go to every household. Felicity, have you got something to say?
Oh, we did.
Oh.
It was in flagship when we had the consultation, and there was an explanation of rights of way and what the improvements would be. What the improvement plan was. I think it's probably a little late for the transport-centric publication that Lex is putting together, but we could put it in a future one if that's what you would like.
Well, it just seemed, a lot of people didn't know what they were, and perhaps they didn't know, could they use them or not? So perhaps something simple to explain, because as it's going to every household, that theoretically there is no reason why people shouldn't know. That's assuming that they read it.
Okay, yeah, and we will also look at the content of the website pages as well, so that they're updated to reflect the fact that
Yeah.
the plan has been approved.
Yeah, good, lovely. Yes, I'm happy with
Sorry,
all of
can I
this.
just ask a quick question? You mentioned something about a special flagship going to households. Could you explain
No,
what
it's not.
that
It's
is?
not. It's like a flagship.
Oh, right.
What I asked for this to be done, if it was possible, and it's now emerging. I think it's next month, is it? It's going to be ready or thereabouts to explain where we've got lots of things going on in transport, but people, the general public, see there's something going on there, there's something going on there, and what's the connection? And what I wanted people to, and what I want people to see, that we've got a 17-year programme, and all of these things that are going on will be, well, not all of them, because some things are just ordinary, everyday, ongoing things, but bigger schemes are part of filling in the gaps in the network, whatever that network may be. It could be walking routes, it could be cycle routes, it could be bus routes, etc. So it's explaining the whole thing so people can see what we're aiming to achieve in 17 years' time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. There's some going on now, but they're all part of a bigger thing. So it's explaining it sort of fairly simply, because avoiding technical, oh, ignore my phone, a lot of technical terms. So, and that is going to be published. I think it's February. I think we're looking at. Am I right? Yes.
Ask if, as opposition spokesman, we could see a draft of that before it's finalised.
Yeah, of course you can. Yes, yes.
On that point about the flagship, I have to admit, I do feel a bit blindsided in a sense of I didn't know about it until a member of my actual group told me about it, which is disappointing because when they were at the GP summit, they said it was the effectively words that they used, it was let slip to them, to which then they promptly text messages me, to which then I don't want to say cornered Lexa, but I asked Lexa what's going on here, and she was very open about it. But the fact is, had that not been slipped at the GP summit, I might not have picked up on what you've just said and told Councillor Heaney about that, because we wouldn't have known. And I think
But it's not secret at all.
Well, no, but it does seem like it's a secret because Councillor Heaney clearly didn't know about it. I only knew about it because of a slip of a tongue of a member of the administration, should we say. And that's quite disappointing, if I'm honest, especially if it's going out next month and we have had no prior knowledge to it. I've booked a briefing of my own on my own behest next Friday, which I'm going to open to Councillor Heaney if he wants to come along. But I don't think this is very fair from an open, honesty and transparency point of view.
Well, when you're the administration, you can do things as you want. We're actually
no, you can't do
just
things as you want. That is the problem that you have to get your head round. That you cannot do things as you want.
We're just working as a transport team to explain.
Absolutely.
At my request to explain what the plan is. The plan is already published. The transport strategy is already published. So it's to show where everything fits in. I, as well, being a geographer, wanted to have maps, okay? So I wanted to be able to see the final map as we see it now. It would alter over 17 years.
I understand that, Councillor
And to
Stone.
fit it all in. So it's the people who are actually doing the work, who are putting this all together, at my request to go out to the general public, but yes, all of you, all ward councils will see it before it goes out.
What I'm going to ask is, when were myself and Councillor Heaney as opposition spokesperson going to be actually notified that this was happening? I'm quite disappointed, actually, because I only heard about it from third party. And considering we are the traffic and transportation spokespeople, we should be able to say that we know wholeheartedly that was going on, especially if a publication's going out next month. So would it have been a case of 2 days before it goes out, you can see it?
No,
I don't know. And, and I know you said as the administration you can do things as you please, but that's not actually strictly true. You do have a constitution to uphold, and, a part of that is an access to information, and that would have been information that should have probably been divulged and shared, probably earlier than having to hear from a third party at a GP summit, which is completely different to what we're discussing here today. I mean, I don't want to be pedantic about it, but there are processes and ways of means that we have to go through. And I think on this case, we've been told from a third party, and we've picked up on something you said today.
Well, I didn't notice that happening when you were in the administration, but
I was a
that
humble
may be a faulty memory on my part.
backbencher those days. I can't take credit
Pardon?
for what my colleagues did.
Well, all I'm saying is I can't remember that happening, and this is not secret at all, but it's the administration who are working on it, and it is the administration's choice to doing it. And yes, perfectly happy. There's nothing secret in it at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It is explaining things that maybe a lot of people don't understand.
I don't think the principle of it is a bad thing.
You will see it before it gets published.
Yeah, I don't think the principle of what you're doing is a bad thing, but it's just a disappointment of how we've learnt about it.
Yeah, but you want to know, Councillor Peter Harris, every single thing that we're doing, and that is not up to you to...
I wouldn't be
know.
doing my job if I wasn't asking those questions.
Well, okay, well, I wouldn't be doing my job if I was saying to you, you can't see it until there's a final draft, and then it goes out to you, and then you can comment on it by all means, and add anything in that you wish.
That's
and we will consider.
absolutely fine. But what I'm just saying is the process of the fact is we didn't know it was happening because no one had the bother to tell us.
We
But
didn't have to let you know at that
why,
stage,
why
'cause
is
it's not even complete.
But why is one of my colleagues in my group, who's not even in the transport section, knows exactly that is going on?
I have no idea. You know, I've said before, and I've said it in full council, you know, I am not a psychic.
It's not a criticism of you, Chair. Honestly, it's not a criticism.
No, I have no idea who's told you this.
Well, I can show you. I can show you. It's come from
I'm
the
not
G-
interested,
you know?
quite frankly.
Quite frankly, though, you're not sharing information either, and that's the problem.
We will be sharing information
Yeah, when
once
you- When it suits you, not when it's actually required. That's a completely different thing, and that's where we
Well,
that's
why
where we
is it
clash.
required by you now?
Well, because we want. The fact is, you haven't told anyone until you literally. I've just challenged you on it. If I had not challenged you on it, you would not have said a word, and that is a fact.
Hang on a minute. I was the one who mentioned it. So it shows how secret it is. I
Well, no,
mentioned
you
it
actually mentioned it, but you mentioned it in a way, a transport flagship. I mentioned it to Councillor Heaney, who would not have picked up on it had I not said it. You know, I only knew about it from a third party. The fact is, that probably would have gone past this meeting had no one had known. You know, you've been challenged on it, and now you don't like the fact that you've been challenged on it, and that is a problem. You know, it's a process that you should have shared.
No, I disagree. It will be shared with you.
We agree to disagree, okay?
Pardon?
I'm quite happy to agree to disagree.
Yeah,
to
we're
move
right.
on.
Okay, sorry. So can we continue? Thank you. I'm the chair. I'm decided we're continuing. Right. If there are any more questions or comments on public rights of way? No? Okay. Then I'm happy to go along with it. And thank you very much for a very, very thorough... I love the consultation because you've covered so many things. Surprised at some of the answers, I must admit, but very, very good report. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg.
Right. My number 5, your number 4, and I apologise for that, South Sea Transport Hub, and who is presenting that. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, all. First, I'd just like to point out, Councillor Patey Harris, that I appreciate you noted that there were some amendments, so they have been updated. The wrong version was updated.
Can you speak a little closer to the microphone,
Sorry,
please, because I'm old and deaf.
No, sorry. Just noting there were some comments, they've been updated in the report, so that's going to be issued after this meeting, and there is a map down there, and noting that the wards affected, it isn't Central South Sea, but it's actually St Jude Ward and St Thomas Ward, so it sits on the boundary of that, and there's a map demonstrating that. So this report provides a high-level summary of the work developing around the South Sea Transport Hub. The project is in early stages of development, focusing on the integration of regeneration and transport opportunities within the area. The South Sea Transport Hub is a project aimed to improve transport connections and public realm within the area adjacent to the Hover Travel. That's Clarence Parades and Pier. The project aims to bring together the works delivered by the Coastal Defence Team, along with both Portsmouth City Council's and the Hover Travel's aspirations for redevelopment of their site and the associated areas alongside. Aligning the project with South Sea Frontage 2-3, delivery of Clarence Pier is integral, and delivery of these timescales is due 26-27, so just noting that. It's noted that the area provides transport connections currently, but this is a prime opportunity to make better usage of the area and spaces available. So we've got opportunity to improve transport links, promoting sustainable travel, delivery of wider improvements, ensuring regrowth in the local area and improving economic, culture and leisure opportunities. The South Sea Transport Hub is supported within our adopted policies, inclusive of the Seafront Master Plan, stating the opportunity for a new transport hub within this location, and also within LTP4, Policy L, delivering high-quality transport interchanges. It's a multi-agency project, and we'll very much be promoting a joint partnership approach in delivery, where the transport team will be working very closely with the Hover Travel, Culture and Leisure and Coastal Defence team. All parties share a vision to maximise the potential for prime seafront location, creating better transport links connectivity. In terms of next steps, I think first and foremost we're looking to review and identify the user groups around the area and the transport requirements that may be needed moving forward, so working closely with the bus companies, coaches, etc. Obviously, Hover Travel is absolutely critical to this area in terms of their redevelopment plans and what the opportunities are working on with their site. Engagement, so from my perspective as well, for the project of this, there's a real opportunity for meaningful consultation. It's, you know, it's the forefront of this. It's a feasibility stage, so we can consult with user groups and members of the public to understand exactly what do they want around there, and working with the Coastals team in terms of consistency. Looking at initial concepts and design, so again we need to understand the constraints within the area. It's on a flood defence, so we need to be mindful of that, and the implications of the boundary site. Refining a clear brief for both the transport hub and redevelopment of the Hover Travel, and legal and lease arrangements and associated implications around that, because there's a lot of concessions or opportunities that we need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney, any questions?
Yes, thank you. I did put a question mark against Central South when I read it, because I wasn't able to come to the briefing, so I didn't actually raise it there. But yes, thank you for clarifying that. I realised that it wasn't quite correct. The map's also useful because it just shows the whole of the area that's being considered. The report talks about feasibility funding of £50,000 being allocated, and I understand that obviously there are still things to be done. The Section 7 talks about next steps, about working with the different stakeholders, etc. What I was interested to know really are sort of 2 or 3 things really. One is, when is it anticipated that a capital bid will go in? Are we talking about a year's time or whatever? I mean, are we talking longer term? You know, the second question really relates to the stakeholders. I mean, are we expecting stakeholders to contribute in funding to this? Because we're going to be, you know, doing things to Hover Travel. Are they going to fund as well? Are we looking for contributions, joint contributions, etc.? And I was going to ask about the arrangements for the land, as to whether we own all of the land. It talks about leasing arrangements, so I'm assuming we do own. We are the complete landowner of that area. So it's some questions around, you know, when might a capital be going in? I mean, we're talking 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year. Are we expecting contributions from other stakeholders? And are the land issues all fairly simple because we own most of it, or do we have to negotiate with other landholders?
Okay. Abby, can you answer all those questions?
In terms of feasibility, so this is just early doors, so ultimately what we're looking at doing is developing out these plans and concepts around what we would initially want to do and how we can develop that forward in terms of engagement, and we will be looking at a budget, an expression of interest, or, you know, some funding opportunities as we progress the scheme moving forward. So that might be internally or it may be externally as well, so there's opportunity there and scope. Just touching upon the land, we do lease it, so PCC own the land. Obviously we've got the Crown Estate as well in terms of the seafront area and the beach, but we were working with Hover Travel in terms of a leasing arrangement for that at the moment, in terms of what that could look like in the future. And forgive me if there was another question, please let me know.
As it's about the sort of anticipated timescale, I mean, obviously there's some feasibility, but are we thinking this is going to be 2 years down the line, 3 years, 5 years? I mean, what is our target for trying to do it? I mean, I know we've got to bid, we may have to bid for money, etc., but what are we sort of aiming for?
Well, I think it's fitting in with the coastal work, and this is how, not exactly how it came about, but it was highlighted then, because when the coastal work is done, that area around there is really looking very sad. And it's a great opportunity to bring together lots of things. I was talking yesterday at the conference to Neil, isn't it, from Hover Travel. He's really quite excited because he wants to get involved. Whether these stakeholders will contribute, that's part of the feasibility as well, isn't it? Because we've got to find funding. You know, we haven't got the money there just to do it. So, and these are things I think would need to be worked out with everybody involved. So this is the idea of the feasibility, to produce what Martin calls shovel-ready schemes, so that they can go out for bidding, you know, for bidding for funding.
In answer to my question, there is no timescale. This is whenever. And it could be 5 years, 10
the
years,
sooner
whatever.
the better.
Right,
but
okay.
there's no point in putting a date on it, because if we don't achieve it...
Well, I think we should have an aim. To
Yeah, but
try
then
and
if we
get-
don't achieve it, Graham,
Well,
people like you then would turn around and say,
No,
well, you said you were going to
no.
have it done by such and such a time, and
No,
you're not. So
I
we, you know,
don't tend to do that because I do understand how projects can get delayed
Yeah,
because of all
right,
sorts
good,
of things, but that's fine. But I think we do need to have some sort of aim to do it because otherwise, how can you plan to do other things? Because there'll be, if you're creating an interchange, then there'll be other things linked to that.
well, I should imagine it'll have to fit in with the coastal work, and that's not due down there until when? 20...
I mean, can I just say, I'm not necessarily
26?
looking for an immediate answer. Now, if somebody hasn't got an answer, if they come back to me and give me some idea when what sort of time frame is, we're talking 3 to 5 years, that's the sort of time, or is it, that would be useful to know. And so we pencil it in, and yes, things can
I
change.
don't know if Abby's
whatever.
got any information on this.
In terms of their work, so we're working very closely with the Coastal Partnership team, and in terms of the delivery of that section, they're looking at 26, 27. So ultimately, what we will need to do is make sure that we have something in place, going through that consultation process, and also there's a really good opportunity of joining forces with them in terms of the design and that's also construction. So it makes sense to be running parallel with the works that they're doing.
I think it's one of those. It's an aspirational scheme, isn't it? I mean, obviously, it would be great if it comes off, but to aspire to get something and to fit it in with what's already going on there, that would be the aim of the timescale. But there are lots of other factors that have to be taken on board. I mean,
Yeah, being aspirational is fine, but aspirational with a purpose. I mean, if we're trying to create a better integrated transport system, then probably a transport hub is quite important. And we don't want to say, well, it'd be nice to do it if we could, but if we can't, oh, well, that's okay. I think we need to be
that's not what I said.
Well, you said it was aspirational. I was just saying,
it's an aspirational scheme. It's changing what's there. So it's quite aspirational, very different from what is already there, and to bring in all those transport areas as well, including and obviously the businesses down in the seafront. So it's got to be working with those people. But the idea, I think, is to get it done in line with the sea defences, because obviously that will be a continuation.
That's a better understanding of where it fits in. So
But it is
I'm satisfied with
aspirational
that.
because we're aspiring to have something very different.
Yes, I know. Just let me finish what I was saying. You didn't need to come back with aspiration again. But now we know it's 26, 27, and after that gives me a good idea of how it works. Just coming back on the comment you made about criticism, I have raised a question about two issues where decisions were made by you and then things were not implemented. And I raised a query with Felicity about why we weren't told about the fact that they were not happening. One was the parking app thing, and the other one was a decision on which came up at council, which you'll remember. And the other thing was the issue of the road safety reports back in December 2021, which were agreed but not implemented. Road safety report in 2021, December 2021, which wasn't implemented because of it was eventually staff shortages, etc. And I just said it would have been useful, since it was a decision already made, if we'd just been given an update on that. Actually, it's not happening because we only found out about the parking app not working at all because a question was asked at council, and I happened to ask one almost simultaneously of Kevin, because I put mine in just at the same time the agenda was being prepared, because I was being asked questions about it. I was saying, I haven't really heard anything about that, and nobody's talking about it, and nobody's actually mentioned that they've used it. I was thinking, that's really odd, and I couldn't quite work out, but nobody will say, actually, it's not working. Well, okay, it's not necessarily a criticism of you. Things sometimes don't work, but it would have been good if we'd been briefed about it as opposition spokesperson. I just think that it's good to do that, because if I'd been, when I was chair of housing, if we had big projects going on and things were not happening, I was very willing to brief the opposition spokesperson about them and so on. So anyway, that was the point about criticism. It's just wanting to know about things that have been decided and why they weren't happening. That's what I raised the issue for.
Okay. Councillor Peter Harris.
Thank you for that, Chair. No, thank you for adding those things to the report, Abby. Firstly, I appreciate that. It's helpful to have the map as well. I'm just going to start off a bit left field. I've had a question from a resident actually, who's asked if I can raise it, and it's about EV charging points. There's no obviously reference to EV charging points in the part of the Hover Travel Terminal as part of the how do I put it? Apart from the whole wider scheme of the transport hub. And she said about the car park about there. Is that actually involved as well? Because it doesn't actually explicitly state it in the report, but it does sort of make reference to it. So the whole scheme is going to be, is it all in one? Can you explain that a little bit?
Sorry, just for clarification purposes, do you mean in terms of the South Sea Transport Hub or the particular transport hub?
South Sea Transport Hub.
Right,
Just so
okay.
for the South Sea Transport Hub, you've got the hover travel terminal.
Yep.
Then opposite, you've got the car park on the front.
Yep.
It doesn't actually explicitly state that in the report. They're interlinked, and there's going to be improvements to both of them.
Right.
Is that part of the aspiration that the cabinet members are talking about?
It may well be, I was going to say, as part of the feasibility. I would
Part of the
expect it
feasibility.
would be something
So
to be looked
there's a
at in
potential
terms
for that to be in there. That's all. It's just so I can
Yeah,
go back
no,
to
that's-
just so I can go back to this lady and say to her that's part of the thing. I said I'd raise it today when she emailed me late last
That's fine.
night.
And I
So
think the best thing for me to do is note that, and we can go away and have a look at it.
is it right to just drop me an email to that effect and just say that's going to be in the
That'd be
feasibility, so I
perfect.
can send it over. And also, that if it is, obviously she's asked if we can look at EV charging points as well, which I'm sure you will be anyway as part of any good project that you're going to be doing. And part of being an aspirational green city, it's very important for us to do that. The only concerns I have is it's just something that's been raised between Councillor Heaney and Councillor Stagg about this being aspirational. I think that this is a really important project. I mean, as we are building transport hubs and trying to get people around the city, I would like to see some timescales if possible. And it's not so much I want to see timescales to hang it around anyone's neck, because I don't think that's the right way to do this, because this project itself is important because as it does link into the sea defences, it's more so that we can have smart measurable targets. So obviously we know that we have a specific target, you know, we can measure against it. Is it achievable? Is it realistic? You know, and when's it going to be done by? I think if we start to work to that model and have a more focus about where we are, I think it gives you guys more clarity. It gives us as members more clarity, and then we can have a more update. And it's so if we reach a point in the project where we say we haven't reached that, okay, let's refresh and refocus and go again. It's more about doing it collegiately and ensuring that we don't overspend money, because I think if we do it in I think a big task, I've always looked at this with big tasks and big projects I've ever worked on, that you break them down into smaller bits, and once you've achieved that bit, you move on to the next bit, you move on to that, and generally you do it in a quicker timescale. And I think that might be a way to look at these sort of projects with the transport hub, because they are over a long period of time.
I think you must remember this is at feasibility stage.
Yeah, I know.
We
but
haven't got any further than that.
I just think that
Yeah.
if we move on, I think we will, because you seem like you use the word aspirational very often, and that was a David Cameron buzzword. So I'm very,
Well, I
very
do
happy.
think so, because that
happy
is
with that.
a
But I think it's important as well, and that's what I think.
Yeah,
I think
I
this
totally
project
agree.
is a really important project for the city to get right, especially for people coming from the island and for people down that part of town to leave their cars and get them out of their cars. So I would like to see if we can put some measures in place, if possible, once we go through feasibility stage. I think that'd be a good idea. But that's all I really have to add on that. It's a really important project.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy for it to go ahead.
Yes, thank you. It's just an information report, but thank you for that information. I think there are lots of things, we were talking about them this morning, that sort of coming in to think about. And so I suppose that will go on. And these are things that just have got, because I can't remember how it came about this morning. But we were talking about all the possibilities. I think it was probably hover travel, because I was talking to hover travel yesterday, and they were so aspirational. So there's lots of things that are still on the cards which need to be explored, and that's really where feasibility comes in, to lead to whatever the design is at the end. So there are a lot of people still to be consulted with, and but we are aspiring to have something which is really good. A bit like the Spinnaker Tower, when that finally came into existence. That was your party, wasn't it? Lots of criticism, but absolutely fantastic building. So thank you very much, everybody. Anything else? No? Thank you.